Hey guys, it's Elizabeth with the Four Walls Podcast, and today I have Mariel. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. Okay, so I'm Mariel. I'm 31 years old. I am Filipina. I was born in the Philippines and then I moved to the UK when I was 13. So I'm like, I'd say both when people ask me where I'm from. And I've been traveling for about 4 months now. I'm currently in the Philippines with my family, but I've just been traveling around Southeast Asia for the last 3 months. Yeah.
Wow, such a fun time, and I love that you're back in the Philippines with your family. I'm sure they're so happy to see you.
Yes, yeah, it's just been a bit different from being constantly sort of solo traveling to suddenly being with the family. It's been really nice and been nice to just sort of relax after traveling for a while on my own.
Absolutely. So, when was your first solo trip?
So it actually was a few years ago. It was only like a day trip. So I was in Belgium for a college exchange program, and I took a day trip to Germany because it was so close and you could just get the train. So that was my first proper solo trip. I would actually, I'd say like a big solo trip. My first one was no, a few months ago in June. No, not a few months ago, last year, sorry. In June, I was in Canada at the time. I was living in Canada, and I just decided to solo travel around East Canada and visit some of the cities there.
Wow, what brought you to Canada from the UK?
So I was with my ex-partner at the time, and he wanted to live outside of the UK. He went to Canada initially when we first met and attended his cousin's wedding. Fell in love with Banff, Canada, where they lived, and he decided, I want to go there, I want to work there. He's never lived abroad. So I said, okay, I'll come with you. I've also never been to Canada, and I always like going to new places. I said, okay, we'll go there. And that's how I ended up in Canada.
Wow, that's such a big change. Were there a bunch of like cultural differences, or did you feel like it was a pretty easy transition?
It was actually quite hard for me because I have been living in cities all my life pretty much. And where I was living in the UK, it's a big city called Bristol, just a few hours away from London. And where we moved in Canada was Banff National Park. So it was going from a city to a small town that was basically catered for tourists. Everything about the place is for tourists. And it was really nice. I don't know if hopefully the viewers will Google it, what Banff looks like. It's a absolutely incredible, beautiful place, mountains and just so much nature. For me, it was like a big transition and a struggle to, yeah, transition because of like just how busy my life was in Bristol to compare to Canada. So yeah, it was hard.
Yeah, especially moving to a small tourist city, it's a major
Yeah.
difference.
Absolutely. And what's wild is like Canada, especially Banff, they only have, I think, a, uh, 40,000 residents, I think, but in the summer they get over like, I don't know, 4 million tourists, something like that. This statistics are quite wild. So yeah, you go from like being quiet in the winter and then suddenly an influx of people in the summer, and it was just like, whoa. But it was a fun experience, and yes, I did like and enjoy Banff in the end. I definitely recommend it to people who visit Banff and Canada in general.
Yeah, I've seen pictures and it just looks like an absolute beauty, especially in the mountains and everything. It's amazing.
Yeah. I love CGI. Honestly, sometimes when I'm walking around, I just think like maybe there's just a massive green screen, you know? Someone's just projecting this because it doesn't look real when you're looking at it. Honestly, it's just pitch perfect.
That's one of the beauties is I always feel like, you know how they used to have the screensavers on the TV or on the
Yes.
computers and you'd be like, "Oh my gosh, there's no way that place is real." And then you see it and you're like,
Yeah, absolutely right. It's one of those places for sure.
"So what cities did you go to when you visited or when you started going through Canada for your travels?"
So the show started off in Toronto. That's how they say it. Finally, you have to say it a certain way. In Toronto, and then I went to where did I go next? I think I went to Quebec, and then Montreal. I might be missing something there. Yeah, Toronto, Quebec City, and then Montreal. Yeah.
What a fun little trip. Which one would you say was your favorite city to spend time in?
Oh, I really like Quebec City. It's so pretty there. I went during the spring to, I saw pictures of Quebec City in winter, and it looks absolutely gorgeous. I liked all three because all three I think are very different and has its own like little quirk and charm. So Toronto, I really liked it for the graffiti. There's like a graffiti alley, and I saw there's a bit of like international sort of influence with the food, and they've got the Bay Harbor area. Quebec City is just like that French influence that you can really see, and it's very quaint, very charming. And in Montreal, the artwork and just like the city vibe is different. It's also obviously got that like French influence that you can see when you're walking around. But Quebec City for me, because I just really like quaint and charming places like that.
Absolutely. And how is it being in Southeast Asia now compared to like you lived in Canada for a little while, it was cold and now
Mm.
it's really hot and humid and
Yeah,
how are you
it's
adjusting?
yeah, at the beginning, it's like, oh my God, like I love this heat, and all of my friends back in Canada posting like snow pictures. So I'm like, oh, I'm loving my life. But now I struggle whenever it gets cold. It's like not even, I don't know, minus, I don't 15 degrees. 15 degrees is cold for me. But yeah, the heat's been nice. And yeah, I think just being back in Southeast Asia is just always like I really enjoy it. Being Filipino and growing up here during my childhood, it always brings back nostalgic memories for me. So I always love coming back to Southeast Asia.
Absolutely. And I saw that you did like a really cool trip around Thailand, Cambodia, and Vietnam. How did you go about planning?
Yes, so I initially wanted to do this trip, like go solo backpacking 10 years ago, I'd say. I came to Cambodia for the first time after leaving the Philippines. So it was, I think, 2008, I left the Philippines to move to the UK, and then I came back to Southeast Asia in 2016 for the first time after leaving. And that's sort of where the dream of solo backpacking was born. And so I always knew that I wanted to do the trip for a long, long time. And when I went about to finally do it, I just researched a lot and I knew the Banana Pancake Trail, which is what I did, is a famous trail for first time solo backpackers because one, a lot of people have done the trail, and two, it's a great way to meet people. So I thought I'm gonna do that because this is my first long term sort of travel by myself. So I just Googled a lot, watched TikTok, Instagram. Yeah,
Social media is definitely a big help for traveling these days.
absolutely. I don't know, like that's kind of what made me want to post about my travels as well because people like me who want to do a similar trip could hopefully find something useful with what I share online.
Absolutely. So, what are some of the things that you've learned since backpacking that you kind of wish you knew before?
So there's like a few practical things that I learned, but also like personal things that I've learned. So practical things I've learned definitely is just don't pack too much. I brought way too many things and I had to send some stuff back home literally within like 2 weeks of being in Southeast Asia. And there's so many markets in Southeast Asia. Like every place you go to, there will be a market and you can buy everything here. So literally just pack the basics and just get it here. Another practical thing I learned is just sort of looking at calendar of events in the places that you're going to go to. For example, I went to Chiang Mai and I didn't know about this massive festival that they have, which is the Lantern Festival in Thailand. And I only heard about it when I got to Chiang Mai and decided I'm going to wait a few days until I book the Lantern Festival or my accommodation because I'm not sure yet if I'm going to go. And then I went to Pai. Everyone I met were going back to Chiang Mai to go to this Lantern Festival. And I decided, okay, I'm going to book it now. And I left it too late. All the prices for accommodation was about 3 or 5 times more expensive. So it ended up where I couldn't book any accommodation because it was just too out of budget. So I really regretted that because that festival, if you look it up online, and it's like that Tangled moment, I think that's very viral. And it's just a once in a lifetime experience thing. Well, it's not once in a lifetime, but you know what I mean? 'Cause I'm already there. I really regretted not going. So things like that. And sort of personal lessons. It's like I didn't realize that I really, really like my own company. There were a lot of times where people would ask me to come out, and I think it's okay to say no if you're not feeling it, but also find a balance of finding friends or meeting other people, I think is a good thing because at the beginning I struggled a lot and I was putting this pressure on myself. This was like a week or 2 weeks into my trip, and I was thinking, why haven't I met people yet? Am I not trying hard enough? So I think giving yourself grace when you're solo traveling because you're doing a lot, like planning where to eat, planning where to sleep, where to go, what to do. So just giving yourself grace, definitely having time to yourself, and I think journaling a lot is a good thing to do as well. And yeah, just things like that. Sorry, I'm just rambled.
No, not at all. I mean,
Yeah, I tend to just go off on a tangent sometimes.
no, I think you made some really good points, especially with, bringing clothes and stuff, because you don't realize how much you don't actually wear.
Yes, yeah, I had to leave some stuff at some hostels or like donation piles just because I thought, no, I need to. And the bag somehow doesn't get any lighter when you're moving along. You just end up accumulating more stuff. I don't know how that happens, but you do end up buying more stuff and it gets heavier.
Yes, you're like, I left 10 things back there. How is it not at least 5 pounds lighter?
Yes, yeah, absolutely. You know, you're carrying that bag, you're unpacking it, packing it every time you're moving from one place to another. So it's just something that you have to think about. Like you don't realize it until you it's like the second time, the third time you're unpacking and packing it again. Yeah.
So, as you've been going to these different cities and staying at different places, how have you felt that? Because you said 10 years ago I thought about doing this backpacking trip, but now you're like, okay, I'm in my 30s now, and most people are 10 years younger, right? So you kind of run into that
Yeah.
like age gap. How have you transitioned through that?
At the beginning, I thought, yeah, I had this expectation that most of the people I would meet would be like people in their gap years or people that, you know, are just in like their mid-20s or early 20s. And that was true for the most part. But it really surprised me that I met so many travelers that are also my age. And not only that, but like people that were older than me, which was really wonderful. And it was, yeah, it was surprising to me, but it was also really lovely because it gave me inspiration to keep doing this. You know, that I see other women, men traveling at an old age, and yeah, I was just really motivated and inspired by them. I think, yeah, when you think about like backpacking, you probably think, you know, people around that early 20s, late 20s age. No, there's so many solo backpackers, solo travelers that are these or older, and I think that's really, really wonderful. So at the beginning, yes, I did think, oh my God, I'm gonna be the oldest one in the group. And then later on, as I progressed in the trip, I met more and more older people that were traveling, and yeah, I loved it. I was so inspired.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love that you like talk about that too, because I think it's important, especially for people who are in that kind of, in their 30s and stuff, and they're like, man, I really want to do this, but my time has passed. And it's like, but no,
Hmm.
you could still do it. Like, there's no
Yeah,
age limit or requirement when it comes to these kinds of things.
absolutely. And I think a lot when I met those travelers that were either my age or older, I asked them, you know, like how long are you traveling for, or like where else have you traveled? And most of them, like it's you don't I learned that you don't have to do like this whole long-term backpacking at my age or older. Like you can do like shorter trips. Like some people were only doing it for a month, some people were only doing it for 2 weeks. So, you know, like it doesn't have to be like a full 3 months or 6 months like a lot of the youngsters are doing. Like you can go solo backpacking just for 2 weeks. That's absolutely fine and wonderful, I think.
Absolutely. What have been some of like the key moments for you so far on your trip that you just kind of like look back and you're like, wow, that was really great?
There's so many amazing experiences when you're solo traveling. I think it was mostly seeing the local life and meeting the locals and really interacting with them, but also meeting other travelers for me. I did Hajj week, and that was really, really great experience. And seeing the locals around and also talking, trying, it's hard to communicate obviously with the language barrier, but trying to communicate with them via translate and also the other local experiences that I've had with just like guides and the other travelers that I met in hostels. I think those were really the highlights because the experiences were great doing adrenaline rush things like you do when you're out traveling. They're all great things, but I think when you have people to share those memories with and those like connections are made, that's really what sticks to you. So I think those are my highlights.
Absolutely, I totally agree. Would you say that you're staying in like the main cities of the countries you're visiting, or are you kind of venturing out to more local areas where less tourists visit?
So I think my route, I stayed mostly on the major cities and I followed the Banana Pancake Trail. So I didn't really change the route much. And I think that's one thing I've learned because this is my first time sort of a long trip in a sense that it's just not, it's more than 1 month. And this is my first time backpacking. I thought I'm just gonna follow this initial trail. And I learned, yeah, that if I could give anyone advice if what for someone who wants to do Southeast Asia backpacking, is just look for those less touristy places because the trail is lovely for meeting people, like I said, but there are so many other places that are close by that where you can just sort of veer off and have a bit more of a local experience, I think, which I wish I did.
Absolutely. So, what are kind of like your next plans? Are you going to continue backpacking once you leave the Philippines, or are you heading back to Canada or the UK?
So I'm actually going to France where my sister lives. I'm gonna be staying with her for a bit and just maybe do some like solo day trips here and there over there because France is also a wonderful place and so many places to visit there. Food is amazing as well. And then after that, I will be heading back to the UK because I haven't been home in 2 years since moving away to Canada. I think that I need to see my friends and my family. Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm sure they miss you like crazy. 2 years is a long time. How have you kind of dealt with like
Yes,
being
sir.
homesick and like, missing your family since you've left the UK?
So I actually, yeah, I struggled in Canada because of I didn't realize it at the time, but I was very, very homesick with like, how different it was to my life in the UK and then the life in France. So I did struggle, and I think uh, the way I dealt with it, is like I started really talking to my friends more. So video calling them and really trying to just keep in touch as much as possible. I also ventured out of my comfort zone because I'm a bit socially anxious and I'm a very much an introvert. So I struggle to make friends, especially in a new place. But I put myself out there and started to hang out with my colleagues more and my housemates and really trying to do things where I try to get myself involved in social situations. So I also like made invited my colleagues over for dinner parties at my apartment in Canada and yeah, just trying to build a community away from home and yeah, just keeping in touch with family and friends back home as well.
That's awesome. Yeah, I thought it could be really hard moving to a new country where you don't know anyone and then also being like a little anxious on top of that. You're like, I don't even know like where to start.
Yeah, it can be quite overwhelming, but sometimes you just breathe and take one step at a time is what I've learned from my experience.
Do you feel like when you're in the hostels, that kind of same, do you still feel like you're socially anxious while you're trying to make friends while backpacking, or did that kind of like set
I
you up?
think so at the beginning, yes, because I was putting this pressure on myself from what I've seen on social media, people like meeting friends super quickly and then like these highlights of doing activities with other people. So I think I was putting that pressure on myself. And I think when I realized that I was putting this unnecessary pressure on myself, then that's when it naturally just like became all right and I started meeting people and they were coming up to me. I was going up to them and introducing myself and doing more activities with other people on tours and things like that. So as soon as I realized that there's no pressure coming from anyone but myself, that's when it naturally just sort of like sorted itself out. Basically,
That's beautiful. Yeah, it's kind of social media is kind of like two-edged sword, right? Like it's so great for planning the trip and like getting ready and prepared, but then once you get there, I almost feel like there's a sense of you have to be doing great things every day, or like every minute has to be planned, or it has to look just how you saw it online. Did you feel any of that like
yes,
pressure
exactly.
too?
And
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
yeah, absolutely. There were moments where I felt guilty as well when I didn't want to do activities or like where I wanted to just have a relaxing day and just be basically like a lazy potato. And I realized there were all these things that doesn't really get shown on social media about solo travel and yes, solo backpacking. You do tend to see more of the highlights of traveling and backpacking, but there are also the negative sides. I think that's why I try to share what I've learned, not only the good but also the bad during my travels, because I want people to know that it's not always going to be good. Like, yes, you are going to have amazing moments, but the reality is there's also going to be hard moments. And I think that it's good to know both sides.
Absolutely, and especially when you're on such a long trip, like 4 months is a very long time to be traveling. You can't expect to be busy every day or you're gonna get burnt out on traveling, right?
Exactly that.
So how did you find like a good mix of planning activities, but also ensuring that you can just relax and enjoy your time? How would you like plan your days or like plan the next location to make sure that you kind of have that balance of, yes, I've booked stuff, but I've also allowed like leisure time?
Oh yeah, so normally when we go to a location, for example, like going to Chiang Mai, I would just initially book like 1 or 2 days and then see like how I feel. Like before going into the trip, I sort of made like a rough list, not like stick to it hardcore itinerary, just like a rough list of things that I wanted to do, definitely that I wanted to see, I wanted to do. So I made that list and when I went to a destination, I would see like when is the best day to do it, or like if other people are perhaps doing it as well, then I could probably join with them. And I never sort of try and plan out all of my days. I just sort of get there, see the vibe, and I normally take like a day just to relax and don't go straight into like a tour or like a big activity the day after I arrive, just because I want to get to relax and get to know the area a little more before heading off to like do such a big activity. Yeah, so that's how I went about it.
And then for people that have never stayed in a hostel, like what has been your experience from staying in multiple different hostels?
I love staying in hostels. The first time I stayed in a hostel was actually in Canada when I did my solo travel there. And I really enjoyed it because you get to meet so many people, not just in your dorm or in your room, your roommate, but also just in general, there's so many activities going on. And sometimes there are free activities too, which is fun. Then during the social hours as well, you can meet other travelers and guests that are staying, and it's just a great all-around vibe in a hostel. I do think that it's very important to know what kind of hostel you want to stay at because there's so many different vibes at a hostel, right? So there's like the party hostels, and then there's the like hostels that are like really, really cheap, but then the amenities are not that great. So I think it's very important to just sort of know what your standards are and also what kind of vibe you're after. So I think because I had that mindset, I had really great experiences with the hostels I stayed at.
Would you say you found hostels in like one country more preferred than other countries? Like, did you find that you liked hostels more in certain areas?
I think for the most part, they've all been pretty similar in terms of, I mean, some of them might be on the cleaner side or more on like, there's more social activities for the guests that are staying. But for the most part, I think I found hostels that were all sort of on par with each other in terms of cleanliness, location, and like vibes in general. Um, although there was a hostel that I stayed at in Hanoi, and it was by chance. I was just looking for somewhere to stay at because one of the accommodation that I had initially booked fell through. So I was walking around the city, came across this hostel, and just asked them if there were any rooms available, and they said yes. I stayed there. And I ended up going back to this hostel 3 times. I think it was because of the location, the people I met there, and just all around the amenities and the vibe as well. So, yeah,
What a lucky
that was my
find.
top hostel probably. Yeah,
So, what are some of the things that like kind of surprised you about staying in hostels?
but what was some of the things? So I think one thing was like girls and they messed with me. Like we packed a lot of things, and I think one of the hostels I stayed at, I walked in there, and all the bags were just played out on the floor, bikinis hanging on the like the bunk bed railings, and just smelled a bit of dampness really. And I was surprised because I thought us girls can be quite messy with our things, especially when we're just unpacking and displaying everything else. I think that was one surprise I had, but that could also be just a personal thing because I tend to sort of try and keep my things tidy because I hate losing stuff. But yeah, that surprised me. Oh, another thing surprised me. Like I only stayed, I think, in one hostel where it was a mixed dorm, and the guys were really lovely, and they invited me to do things with them, and that really surprised me because I don't know, like I didn't really have an expectation, but I knew that like going into my travels, I would feel more comfortable staying in female dorms personally. But that time they only had a mixed dorm available, and yes, I was just really surprised with how respectful and nice the guys were that were in my dorm. I think that was like a great experience for a mixed dorm hostel for me.
Yeah, because I don't know, sometimes mixed dorm hostels are like, I don't know if I want to take that risk.
Yeah, I was a bit hesitant at first, but I decided, you know what, let me experience it just once. At least then I know like what it's like. And it wasn't a bad experience at all. They were really lovely and they were really respectful and we were just, all friendly and chatty. Yeah, they invited me to do activities with them, which was super, super nice. So yeah, it was a really good experience, I think. Yes, there are of course, like pros and cons to it as well. Because I've met other female travelers who are like, I don't want to stay in mixed stores because of the snoring and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, you get female stores as well, so it's okay.
Yes, it's awesome when you have a good experience with something like that. What are some of the things do you like do to, because when you're staying in dorms, it can be hard when you have people coming in and out during the night or like a lack of privacy. Like, are there certain things like did you bring anything or like did you like book specific hostels to like make it so you felt a little more like you had your own privacy or did you do anything like that?
So I definitely brought earplugs, the loop earplugs. Like I cannot sleep without them. I'm such a light sleeper. When I hear noise, it just wakes me up instantly. And eye mask as well is one thing because yes, some people will come in and they will switch on the light, even if it's just the particular light in their own pod or their own bed. That can be not irritating, but it can affect how you sleep. So eye mask and earplugs are definitely my go-to for hostels. And the other thing is I just didn't book any party hostels because I value my sleep a lot. So I just didn't book party hostels. And I read before traveling a lot that if you want to go to a hostel event, like, if you want to go to a party hostel, you can anyway because they allow other guests to come in and socialize there and join in the activities. So it's not a problem to stay in quieter hostels.
I think that's a good way to look at it too. Is like, yes, you get to value your sleep, but if you want to go have some fun on a random night, you can still hop over to the next one.
Exactly. And I met some travelers that did that because they liked the party side, but they didn't want to party every day. So they wanted to have proper sleep and decent sleep as well. So they stayed at like quieter hostels and just went to the party hostels to socialize.
I love that. So, when you decided that you were gonna do this trip, how did you prepare, like financially, like emotionally, mentally? Like, how did that process look for you?
So financially, I was quite fortunate at the time because I was on a working holiday visa in Canada. And so I was staying in staff accommodation, which one lowered the cost of rent for me, and I was able to save up a bit more. And second, I was really fortunate with the Canadian tax because they gave me a little bit of money back from the previous year that I worked. So that sort of overall helped me save money. And when I decided to finally go on the trip, I set myself time that I'm gonna work this amount of months. I think it was about three or 4 months. I thought I'm gonna save really hard in this amount of time to save for my trip. So that's how I prepared financially, emotionally. I think it was harder to prepare emotionally because I didn't really no, sorry. It didn't really sink in to me that I was going on this trip until about 1 month before I was going because I was still working and trying to enjoy my last few months in England. So I wasn't really like thinking about the trip until yeah, closer to the time. And when it got closer, it felt hard because I did end up liking Canada and I had made friends there. So then it was quite sad to say goodbye to them. But then I just kept thinking of how I've been wanting to do this trip for a long time. So just really thinking of that past me that wanted this dream, but also trying to be in the moment of still enjoying my last few months in Canada and also looking ahead that I'm going on this trip and these are the things that I'm going to do. So trying to have a balance of the present and the future, I suppose. And yeah, just remembering really why I wanted to do the trip initially. So I think that's what helped me prepare emotionally. Mentally, I don't know if I was prepared mentally. So I think, yeah, it's sort of like in tandem maybe with my emotional preparedness, but I think I just mentally just said, all right, I'm gonna go out there and, sort of like have a rough plan.
Absolutely. If someone were to ask you for advice, like they're a new solo female traveler and they're thinking about doing a long trip, what's some advice you would give them? Yeah, yeah, that's beautiful. What good advice. Well, thank you so much for your time and for coming on. Thank you so much for everything. Thank you. Thank you again.